Regardless of our political party, regardless of our widely divergent views of President Trump, all Americans agree that the American Revolution is the greatest event in our nation's history. And that's the reason for this museum. Can I have the next slide, please? The next slide. Our facility opened on the 19th of April this year. It is the newest institution in Philadelphia. It is the nation's premier museum on the American Revolution. Next slide. It's a 118,000 square foot building. It cost us $60 million just for the construction. Next slide. There are many times I wish we could have done it this fast and make it look this easy. But we pulled it off successfully. Our exhibits cost over $25 million. And of course, what's most important is our location. Next slide. We are in the heart of Old City, Philadelphia. The museum is in brown with a 6-pointed star. That star, by the way, is taken from one of the premier, Joe, is this yours? One of the premier items in our collection, which is George Washington's flag as Commander-in-Chief of American forces throughout the American Revolution. It's the rarest flag, American flag in existence, the first to carry 13 stars, and each of those stars was a 6-pointed star for reasons I wish I could explain but can't. This is our opening day with over 3,000 people visiting. It was full of pageantry. Next slide, please. And we cut the ribbon with dignitaries, and I'm going to show you a short video clip bringing you the pageantry of our opening day because it reflects so much the themes of the museum itself.
Today we have made history. The Museum of the American Revolution is now officially open.
I think we're the only country in the world with an anthem that ends with a question. Does that star-spangled banner yet wave? Thus far, the resounding answer is yes, and it will now and forever wave, but only if we hold on to it. Because it's not the flag that we're waving, it's what lives within us.
Hip, hip, huzzah! Hip, hip, huzzah! Hip, hip, huzzah!
The museum is open 7 days a week, so it doesn't matter when you come. You can come. Every ticket is for 2 days, so if you don't see everything the first day, you can come back. Now, the challenge for our museum is how do we make this event, more than 2 centuries in the past, long before photography, how do we make it really come to life? To engage you in the life and death decisions, the heroism, the courage that literally changed the course of human history. We do that through a variety of techniques. You see here an immersive environment. We take you to Boston to stand under the Liberty Tree, where the Sons of Liberty first began the protest, the discussions that eventually led to the outbreak of the American Revolution. Next slide. We present to you original artifacts. The image on your left, you are seeing the actual blue sash that George Washington was wearing in this portrait of him by Charles Wilson Peale. On the other side, the right side of the slide, you see original artifacts used at the opening conflict of the American Revolution, the battle at Concord on the 19th of April, 1775. On the right side is a portrait and equipment used by British forces. On the left side, ones by the American militia at the time. We also use life cast figures to bring events to life, to make you realize these are real people just like you and me, inspired by these ideas and taking steps to change history. This brings to life the true condition of the so-called Continental Army when Washington took command outside of Boston in June of 1775. In fact, his forces from Connecticut, from Virginia, New York, Maine, Massachusetts rather, were as prone to turn and fight each other as they were to fight the British. And yet out of this amalgam of people, he found a way to unify them around the cause. Next slide. We also present the finest collection of weaponry from the American Revolution probably ever assembled. And those touchscreens you see in the foreground enable you to examine each individual weapon or piece of equipment in up-close detail. So you can do what every collector would like to do, which is not only look at it under a magnifying glass, but turn it over and see the other side. Next slide. And of course, it isn't just about wars and battles, it's about how people feel. So we bring to life one of the turning points of the American Revolution when the citizens of New York, after hearing the words of the Declaration of Independence read aloud for the first time, gathered and tore down the statue of King George III. Here you are invited to join them in tearing down that statue. And of course, before you go to that slide, that's all right. And of course, you'll also see printings of the first printings of the Declaration of Independence. And you'll discover that one of the very first printings in Philadelphia was actually in the German language because so many German settlers were in the Philadelphia area. Next slide. You'll also see some of the rarest survivals of the American Revolution, which are flags carried by American militia and Continental Line regiments. So few of these survive, and we're privileged to put two on display. The one on the left, if those of you from the UK should recognize the Union Jack in the upper left-hand corner in the cantonment. This actually represents a time when Americans were fighting, when the colonists, not the Americans yet, were fighting for their rights as Englishmen before the Declaration. And after the flag, it shows a flag that has been remade to remove the Union Jack and instead show alternating red and white stripes representing the 13 colonies. Next slide. And we also want you to experience what it was like. So we have a special theater that puts you on the front line of battle. You literally undergo the sensations of that fresh militia unit thrown on the front line, plunged into the middle of one of the most challenging and exciting wars imaginable. Next slide. You can also board a full-scale replica of a privateer and learn about the private ship owners and the volunteers who put to sea, armed their own private ships and put to sea not to challenge the overwhelming might of the British Navy, but instead to attack British shipping, to erode that supply line, and helped us pull off what was literally a war of attrition that lasted 8 years. Next slide. You will meet the cavalrymen who in raids across the South terrorized not only patriot soldiers, but homesteads as well, families, children and women, as the war became a civil war when it turned to the southern colonies in the Carolinas. Next slide. You'll also discover the ever-present issue of slavery. The American colonies was a place where people from 3 continents were colliding. The Native Americans, immigrants from Europe, and Africans brought here mostly in slavery. And the challenge, the ideals of the American Revolution, and the invitation from the British forces to run away to escape to freedom was a constant issue, especially in the South. Next slide. And finally, you will have the opportunity to view photographs of veterans who actually fought in the Revolution, many of them teenagers, but survived long enough to have their photographs taken in the 1840s. And you'll also learn that these events really gave birth to the concept of equality, the sacred truth of liberty, of dignity among people, the dawn of government by the people, for the people, and of the people. And that the American Revolution, while it may have occurred in an 8-year war, in fact continues to this day, as every one of us in this country are heirs to those inspiring ideals and continue to have the responsibility to carry on the American Revolution. So ladies and gentlemen, and of course the highlight of our entire museum is our presentation of the rarest artifact of all, the tent that sheltered George Washington as Commander-in-Chief in the field throughout the war. It was under the simple canvas covering that he made some of the toughest decisions. He suffered his deepest moments of despair and his greatest moments of triumph as he literally held the nation together, inspired the loyalty of his troops and citizens from every colony to prevail and win the American Revolution. So, ladies and gentlemen, I invite you to come see the Museum of the American Revolution. Our vision in creating this museum is not just to preserve the history and the memory of the greatest event in our nation's history, but to make Philadelphia the leading heritage destination, especially for those people who want to understand how this nation came into being. Not only the political thinking that's represented in Independence Hall, but the improbable feat of pulling off victory in the battlefield. We are aspiring for 500,000 visitors a year. We've been open only 6 weeks, but we are on track with our projections. I think that's too short a time to make a full forecast. And we developed that goal of 500,000 based on a very careful analysis of heritage visitors and local audience as well, a detailed analysis of the segmentation possible. To give you a point of comparison, last year the Liberty Bell, which is 2 blocks away, as you saw in my map, counted 2.2 million visitors at the Liberty Bell. Independence Hall was a little over 700,000. However, they have a daily attendance limit, so that tends to suppress the total number there. That gives you a sense of the market size of the heritage tourist market.
So we'll take the last question because we stand between you and lunch.
Other than the American Revolution, I always thought one of the great moments in Philadelphia history was when the Soviet Congress refused to go to the period against the Broad Street bullies. But in relation to that,